In business, is it better to stand out or to fit in? What do you think? Which one's better? Do you want to be in a room and be standing out, or do you want to be the guy that fits in really well in the room? So I think it's a little bit of a trick question in that whether you stand out or whether you fit in determines on where you're at. So if you're at an event and the room is full of sponsors and you each have your own booth, you want to stand out at that booth. You want to stand out from all your competitors. You want to be the booth that really people are attracted to. They notice, they see it. It really makes that connection with them. So in the scenario of comparing yourself to your competition, you want to stand out, but you don't want to stand out in the wrong ways. You want to stand out in a positive way. So how do you stand out in a positive way? Well, that's where fitting in actually comes into play. If you understand who your ideal customers are, you understand the way they think, you understand the way they talk, you understand what they care about, you understand what makes them them. When you get to that level, you can fit in with your customers. The more you fit in with your customers, the more likely you are to stand out from your competition. Here's what I mean by that. So unless you're in an emerging market, you're probably in an industry that's been around for a while. And most of these industries have practices and standard ways of doing things that have just kind of developed over the years. And some of those things are good for the customer. Some of them aren't good for the customer. Some are good for the business. Some aren't necessarily good for the business. When you can go and evaluate what's happening in a market, and you understand your customers well enough to know what they're going to hate. So in Idaho, for example, if you're a contractor, it's kind of standard to take a giant deposit at the start of the job. A lot of businesses will do that. What also has become a little bit of a problem is some of those businesses will take a big deposit, go in and start the job, then they will go out of business and they'll start a new company and get a new license, and that person that hired the original company is kind of stuck. They have to go in and it's a civil matter and they have to try and sue, but if the deposit was too small, then they're probably not going to get their money back without spending more in the legal system than getting their money back. It's really not a healthy situation for anyone because it's encouraging these dishonest practices among businesses, and it's harming customers, which reduces the trust customers have for contractors. So if you're a contractor and you understand these mindsets that the customers have and the concern that they have that they're not going to get their job done. In fact, I know somebody who hired out a contractor. The contractor did about 95% of the work. The work was subpar at best. And they've been trying to negotiate with this company. The contractor hired a subcontractor and the subcontractor did horrible work. So now it's this confusing mess of, is anybody going to come finish the job? Is anyone going to fix what they didn't do right? And do we pay them any more money? Do we not pay them any more money? Again, one of those scenarios where it just creates a mess. If you understand your customers well enough to know that they're not going to appreciate the way that business is being done, you can align more closely with your customers by standing apart from your competition. So in this situation, if you're a contractor, you come in and you say, we're going to do small micro payments all along for progress, and you identify the progress points. You identify what needs to be approved by customer during those points. And then rather than taking a huge deposit up front, you can take a small deposit and then take small payments throughout the progress of the project. I think a situation like that, the contractor is going to be in better communication with the customer so that they're aware of problems sooner, which means they're less costly to fix. The contractor is encouraged to be honest with the customer rather than running off with a big deposit. The customer is not going to need to have as high of a level of trust to do business with that contractor, which will build a stronger reputation, which means you'll fit in better with your customers, stand out from your competition, and that's where real magic happens. So I think if you should stand out, if you should fit in, you should be doing both.